Yeah, right.
Okay, good. Once again, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending on when and where you're joining us from. It's day three of our Microsoft Fabric Data Days, and it promises to be another interesting and exciting session. For day one and day two, we've been talking about everything relating to preparing for your Microsoft Fabric DP700 exam. We've talked about implementing an analytics solution on day one. On day two, we talked about ingesting and transforming data. And today, Francis is already here with us and is also going to be telling us about monitoring and optimizing solutions in Microsoft Fabric. Before I yield the mic to him, just want to quickly introduce to us about our community, which is Microsoft Fabric Nigeria community. We're a small but vibrant community that hosts like monthly meetups where we discuss everything related to Fabric, passing exams, new skills to learn, and also just improving and helping the community of data analysts, data architects, data engineers grow at every point in time. So yeah, please feel free to scan this QR code to join the community on LinkedIn so that you can stay abreast of all information and updates that we have for you. Right now, I'll be handing over to Francis. So Francis, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here this evening. I hope you're all excited. It's day three. Thank you for always joining. So today we are going to be continuing our study group, and then feel free to drop any question that you have either on Teams or on YouTube. So yes, Tip 7 Study Group Session 3, we've talked about implementing a managed analytics solution for day one, and also talk about ingesting and transforming data day two. And today is day three. We are going to be talking about monitoring your solution and prepare for your exam. We are going to talk about monitor and optimize your solution with Microsoft Fabric. So on today's, sorry, I'm using two screens, so in case I'm just looking at the other side. On today's session, we are going to see why monitoring and optimization matter in Microsoft Fabric. We are going to monitor analytics solution in Fabric, optimize analytics solution as well, security and compliance monitoring. So these are the three major areas we are going to be covering today. So the P700 skill recap already. The study guide covers three major areas, of which we cover the first two. So let me not just talk about this too much. We already talked about the first two aspects. So today now our focus still remain on monitoring and optimizing analytics solution. Now, monitoring analytics solution include monitoring Fabric items, identify and resolving errors, and also optimizing performance across all our Fabric items. So that is what the three is about. Now, why monitoring and optimization in Microsoft Fabric? First off, because we want to maximize performance and efficiency. So let's not start speaking English. When we talk about performance, you want to talk about things like improving how your item is performing, things like your notebook, things like your pipeline, things like your data flow gen 2, and efficiency. You want to make sure that they are efficient. Now you don't want to have a pipeline that is running for 5 minutes instead of running for maybe 3 minutes or even less, or you have a pipeline that is taking hours when it's supposed to just run in maybe 15 minutes. So you want to maximize the performance of whatever you are using. You want to also make sure that efficiency is also in place. And another reason why monitoring and optimization is also important in Microsoft Fabric is cost control. Now, when you have a pipeline, a notebook, or a data flow gen 2 that is running for a long time, the way Fabric is done is that it's based on capacity units, right? And that capacity unit is calculated calculated in dollar terms. So it's calculated per hour. So an item that's supposed to just run for 15 minutes, taking 5, 6 hours to run, then means that you are increasing your cost. So to have a good cost control, you need to monitor and optimize your fabric environment. I was helping someone troubleshoot some issue a few weeks back. The person was running a particular pipeline in about 15 minutes, and after doing some performance optimization with the person, this 15 minutes run was actually turned down to about 3 or 2 minutes of execution with just a notebook. So cost control also is very important. The longer your item duration run, the longer it costs, and also the performance and efficiency is also implied. Another thing is better resource allocation. Resource allocation in Microsoft Fabric, like I talked about in day one of our Fabric data days, I talked about the fact that in a particular organization, you can have 2, 3 capacities. Then let's say you have a capacity that is F64, another capacity that is F16. Now, you don't expect the performance of a F64 capacity to be the same as the performance of F16 capacity. So when you are monitoring your, let's say, your capacity utilization, you are able to allocate workspaces to a higher capacity. So these are another very important reason why monitoring and optimizing in Microsoft Fabric is important. You are able to allocate resource accordingly. Even allocate your Spark compute. It's also very important when you are able to monitor. So there are a lot of reasons why you want to monitor. Also to enhance data throughput and timeliness, because it is taking long for your item to run, then that means your data is delayed, it's taking so many time than it should ordinarily. Then proactive issue detection and resolution. So one use case that is coming to my head now why monitoring and operation might be important is, for example, you may have a capacity that is, let's say, F64 again, and then you have an item that is really consuming a lot of your capacity. But if you are not monitoring at all, you don't know when you are going to scale out of that capacity, and then your capacity will actually be shut down entirely. But when you are monitoring, you are able to see how far of utilization you are consuming within your environment. So these are various reasons why monitoring and optimization is important in Microsoft Fabric. Now, there are a number of benefits that you can already imagine. You can scale more efficiently. So if you are monitoring a capacity and you figure that, oh, I'm using a F16 capacity, and then our workload is already consuming almost about 98% utilization of that capacity, then you want to scale up your capacity maybe to the next tier, which is F32. So that's one benefit that you get immediately from monitoring. Or maybe you have a tons of notebook or pipelines that are running in your environment, right? And then you want to ensure that these pipelines are running optimally. So you can also set up things like high concurrency to actually scale more efficiently. Now you also reduce the risk of data corruption and data loss because you are putting in some monitoring and optimization in place. Then you also improve user experience. Now imagine you are a developer and then you are trying to run some notebook run in your environment. Then the notebook run is taking 8, 20 minutes. Then you are just frustrated, wasting away in that 8 minutes because that notebook is not running. And that's because there are other notebooks in your environment that are running, and those notebooks are actually consuming some Spark session. So you want to improve user experience and actually improve their productivity. And also you can maximize your capacity. Then set up automated alerts. So you can set up automated alerts within your environment, either on your notebook failure, or your pipeline failure, on your data flow gen 2 failure, or even on your capacity. Recently, I did some work around automating capacity scaling up or down using Logic App in Azure. So that event is actually a data-driven event using a Fabric capacity metric app, right? So once a particular the capacity utilization is at a particular number, then it actually send a flow to Logic App to scale up to the next capacity. And once it is below a particular threshold, then it scale down. So this way, we are able to actually make sure that you set up automated alert system in your environment. Another use case is maybe with data activator, like when you have a particular number, then you're able to use data activator to probably just trigger a notebook run that calls a public API that can also scale up or shut down certain things. So these are some of the benefits that you get immediately from your monitoring and optimization. Now let's go into details about monitoring analytics solution. Now, some items that I already talked about that you need to monitor in Fabric include your data pipeline, your data flow, semantic model refreshes. For those that come from Power BI background, you can testify that this is one egg of a problem. When you have semantic model that is not up to date, then your Spark job, your notebook, your lakehouses, and even your event stream are some of the items that needs to be monitored. Then monitoring best practices is going to help you identify what to monitor, collect and review the data. You are going to resolve the issue and also optimize performance. So with this best practice, you are going to get the most benefit from monitoring items in Microsoft Fabric. Also, there are some inbuilt solutions within Microsoft Fabric. For example, you have this monitoring that we are going to see. So if you look at your left pane now, you have a monitor tab where you have your workspace, real-time intelligence, and all those things. You have a monitor pane that it can give you a single eagle view of your entire Fabric environment. So you can see things that are running, things that have failed, or things that are currently running. You get to see the activity status, either it is running, completed, succeeded, or it is in progress. Then you see their start time and end time. So for example, on our screen now, let's look at this semantic model being run from a pipeline. You can see the start time, you can see who submitted it, and you can see the workspace that is located. So from this single view, you are able to see that okay, this pipeline previously was taking about 10 minutes, but now it's taking more than that. So you want to go into the exact semantic model where it is being triggered from the pipeline, and then you see who owns the item, and of course you see the location of the workspace where it is located. So you're able to escalate and actually troubleshoot this monitoring. So these are some of the things that you can get inbuilt from Microsoft Fabric environment. Now let's go into our Fabric environment now, and then we look through this monitor of. So I'm going to put that on my screen. Now this is my own Fabric environment, and then we have let me go to my home tab. So from my home tab right now, this is what I was talking about. So this is the monitor tab. So on this monitor tab, okay, let me just refresh and reload the page back to the main view. Right. Yeah, so this is exactly what monitor tab is going to give you. You can see the activity name. For example, you can see that I had tried to I'm able to see the status of this content sharing semantic model, which is located in this particular workspace, and it, of course, it failed. So if it is a production environment or a real life scenario, I'm able to go into this semantic model and see what is actually wrong, what made this solution to fail. I can see the details of what is going on here. You can see the status of the job, the refresh, the duration, 2 seconds, which is entirely strange. It doesn't take 2 seconds for a semantic model to refresh, and then the refresh time is actually on demand. So these are some of the information that you can actually get from your monitor up in Microsoft Fabric. So you can also adjust the columns right here. Maybe you want to see some other things. For example, what we have here is just the start time. I can include maybe the end time so that I can see that one. So I can include the duration, or I can include the capacity, or the job type. And then these are the various things that you can actually add to your filter. Okay, for some, I think I didn't apply. So let me just do that again. End time, capacity, job type, then duration. Then I scroll back, then I click on apply. So you're able to see a lot more columns and in which capacity they belong to, then the job type that they are, and all of that. So that way you're able to monitor what is going on in your environment, and you can click on any of them and then it takes you directly to where they are located. So let's just continue. Um, Now let's talk about optimizing analytics solution as well. Now, key focus area when it comes to optimization include your lake houses, data warehouses, your database, your Spark, and even processing like your event stream and your pipeline. Fabric connect everything with one lake and a unified compute engine. So optimization technique can have a cascading effect on overall performance and cost. So now let's just break that down. That you optimize your data formats, that you optimize your lake houses, is going to contribute to the entire cost that you have in your environment. Now, the way Lakehouse is, for example, we all know that all these type of storages that we have in Microsoft Fabric, and at the end of the day, they are sitting on your one lake environment. So let's say you have about 100 lake houses in your environment, which they are not optimized. Then first thing that you're going to see is that you're going to see that your SQL query endpoint that you are sending is taking longer period of time. And of course, the serverless compute anyway. But the fact that it's serverless compute does not mean cost is not being incurred. So the cost that is being incurred from the fact that that lakehouse is not optimized is going to be higher duration for your query to return results. So, and once you have a higher duration for your query to return results, that means there is implicated cost. And then also, the way the data lake technology in Lakehouse is done is such that it's able to keep old files. So some people set retention period for 30 days, 60 days, and beyond. However, these are just small packet files that are partitioned and saved in your lake houses. So if you don't have your lake mice optimized at all, you can have like a version or history of your data for up to 1 year. So, and of course, this is consuming more space. This is also going to affect your data retrieval from your lake houses. The same thing goes for your data warehouses and database as well. So if you don't have the right optimization for these storages, then you have more time in your query time. More time means more cost, because cost is calculated by compute unit. And the same thing for computers, your Spark engine. You want to actually optimize your Spark as well. So let me go into the next slide. Okay, I think I already talked about lakehouse tables. See, use data lake automation technique like optimize command compaction and set order Z order clustering for faster queries. So this area particularly is a very common exam question that you will see, the difference between your Z order optimize command. What is going to happen to your lakehouse when you actually perform optimize? I think if you go to your lakehouse, for example, you're going to see that optimize button, and then that sort of clean up old file and small files that are existing in your lake house. And also you want to implement partitioning and caching to enhance read performance for large data sets. Partitioning means you are just breaking it into smaller chunks so that when you want to retrieve, it become easier for you. And also for the data warehouses, you want to analyze and adjust table storage formats to actually be in data lake, which is the optimized data format for Fabric. And also you monitor your distribution keys and partition strategy to balance performance as well. Now, under compute, we are going to talk about pipelines. We are going to talk about real-time and Spark. So for example, now you want to optimize data movements by limiting unnecessary transformation and leveraging parallelism. Now let's talk about unnecessary transformation. There are some transformations that are really needless. So that is why the choice of your tool when you are actually moving data from one point to another is very important. Now, what a tool like a notebook or a data flow gen tool, which is essentially a Power Query online, the transformation that they can do easily. You don't want to put that type of transformation in a data pipeline that is going to incur more activity. So if you are doing that sort of unnecessary transformation, then you expect that the run duration of your pipeline too is also going to increase. Then leveraging parallelism. Parallelism means that when you have a number of pipeline running together in your environment. Now, when you initiate an instance of a pipeline run, right, a Spark engine is started. But that Spark engine can be used by multiple pipelines. So if you have 10 pipelines and then you don't have parallelism leverage in your environment, that means you are going to have 10 different Spark. Whereas maybe that Spark is actually even way more powerful or heavier than the work that you are using it to do or than the job you are using it to run. Why don't you just share a single Spark session with multiple pipeline or multiple notebook? So you want to enable parallelism, as you are going to see how to configure parallelism and concurrency run for our pipeline and notebook. So you want to ensure parallelism so that you can use one pipeline session, one pipeline application to run multiple pipelines or multiple notebook. Then also with pipeline, you want to configure incremental load as against full load. Take for example, you have a data record in your source to contain maybe a 10 million rows of data, and then by tomorrow we are adding extra 1 million records into that data. Then when you want to move your data from your source to your destination, you don't want to truncate the 10 million that is already existing in your destination because you now want to load the new 11 million. That is not the best. It is definitely going to take more time, and that means you are actually incurring a running cost every time you are doing a refresh. But rather, you want to implement a an incremental load in that instance. Incremental load is just going to put some logic in places that is just going to allow loading of the new 1 million record. So you want to use incremental load. The fact that, oh, this data, it does not mean anything, that you can do it and then truncate everything in your destination, that's not the best. What is best is that, especially for large data sets, is that you implement incremental load. So you are loading just 1 million record as against loading the entire 10 million records all over again. Also, you will need to configure your pipeline triggers efficiently based on triggers like real-time scenario. You don't want to schedule your pipeline to be running at regular interval even when there is no need for it. If it is possible that you actually do an event-based trigger, then that will be the best so that you don't incur more cost for pipeline that is running at regular interval. And also for real-time data, event stream and event houses, you want to reduce the data volume with real-time monitoring and transformation, because now real-time, the idea of real-time is that you are even trying to query it from source. So you don't want to query the entire data. Imagine you have a Kusto database, they have about 2 billion records of data, and then you are writing a query to query the entire record. Then that is not the best because you are going to put that load on your entire Kusto database when you can just use a filter to actually limit the data you are querying. Also, about Spark, optimize the cluster sizing based on the workload need, so that you can either auto scale to also control cost in that regard. Now, SQL query optimization, I think I have touched briefly on SQL query. Now we have materialized view in Microsoft Fabric. So we have been encouraged to use materialized view. Now, before, as at when I wrote my exam, materialized view was not even existing. But nowadays, materialized view is now existing. It's existing in your lake house. It's also existing in your Kusto database. Materialized view is essentially like what you know as your SQL view. So these are commonly or frequently queried data. So for example, maybe you are used to selecting star where country is equal to Nigeria, and then the cost or the population or the age is greater than 18 and above or something like that. So you saving a template script that you query most frequently is a materialized view. So this materialized view, you just go there, it's just like your SQL view essentially. So that way you are able to optimize your SQL query as well. Then indexing and querying it. You want to index your databases from your data warehouse and also your lakehouse as well. Then optimize query pattern. It's no brainer that having multiple joins actually put a lot of of load or a lot of compute on your databases. So you want to reduce join as much as possible. All the joins that you have in your SQL, inner join, outer join, left join, and all manners of join. So you want to push down filter to streamline your queries. And then of course you monitor your query plan as well. So there are query plans that you have natively within Microsoft Fabric that you can use. So if you check your lakehouse, for example, you know, typically you have your DBO schema. Inside that DBO schema, you have query insight. So if you go to your query insight, you are able to see the queries that are taking the most time to run, the long running queries, the expensive queries. And then, for example, if you see a long-running query, and you know that query you are running it frequently, then you want to maybe change it, maybe from a sub-query to a city or something that is better optimized than you have. So you check your query plan as well. So you can use that schema where you have query insights to have insights into the query. And you can even see user that is actually running the most expensive query. And okay, you probably work with that person that, okay, your query seems to be the set of query that consuming the most compute within your Fabric environment. Now let's talk about security and compliance monitoring. Now, the first level of security is the fact that there is a communication between your browser and your client application, and in between you have your Microsoft Entra ID. I think it used to be Microsoft Active Directory, now called Entra ID. So for example, francis@contoso.com, if I'm trying to log into a Fabric environment and you from another organization, you don't have my password and detail, of course you do not even have any access to it. And after I do that login, that's when I have access to the web front end, and then the metadata platform. Okay, I begin to see things that, okay, this tenant is located in this capacity. Without even logging in, you are not able to see this, and then you begin to see backend capacity information as well. So that's the first layer of security that you can find in Microsoft Fabric. Now, data security in Fabric. First off, when it comes to integration, operate within your Microsoft Fabric ensuring logical data execution across region and secure multi-tenancy management within Microsoft ecosystem. So for someone that is working with multiple organizations, let's say at Contoso or at Northwind, then it is secure. You can't log in because you have access to multiple environments. And also encryption at rest. Data is stored in one lake, like we said, that's the OneDrive for data. Or even while it is stored in one lake, if you don't have access to the Entra ID, you are not able to see that data inside one link. So it is definitely encrypted. And also all data in transit also is also encrypted using the TLS for secure communication. TLS. Okay, I think I'm not can't remember the meaning of TLS, and once I remember, I'm going to drop it in the chat. So it's also secured by TLS, and then role-based access control too. Role-based access control, we already talked about that in our previous session where we talked about the various workspace access from your admin to contributor, member, and also viewer. Those are the role-based access control that you have. And even if you have an admin access to a particular workspace, for example, if I create a lake house and then I'm collaborating with Abdurrahman or any other person in that lake house, if I do not explicitly give you access to that lake house, you are not able to actually go through what you have on that lake house. Now, data compliance too. There is regional data storage. Data at rest is stored in your own region. Now, for those that are very familiar with Azure, you know that when you are deploying any resources, then you pick the region where their resource is created. Now, beyond what you are seeing on your web browser at app.powerbi.com, when it comes to Microsoft Fabric as well, it's actually an Azure resource. So you go to Azure, then you provision your Microsoft Fabric capacity, and at the point of provisioning, you specify the region in which that capacity is going to be existing. So we've seen people having their capacity in multiple regions. Maybe they are in US, West US, East US, or in Europe or any other region. So depending on how you want to have it, you can have your capacity located in different regions, and there are actually data regulations that is governing different regions. For example, you can see the compliance certification, GDPR, IPA. Even in Nigeria, in our own country here, there is data law that governs things that you can do. So let's say you are doing some workload that requires some particular data law, you cannot do that type of work in a region that does not meet that regulatory compliance as well. So we also have auditing and monitoring, tracking access and changes to also enhance governance. And then private endpoint. Now, private endpoint is very important for a close-knitted organizations. For example, you have a blob storage that is public facing, that is private facing. How then do you consume this? So when you have a private endpoint, there are things like VNet gateway, which is the virtual network gateway that you can use to actually access your private endpoint. The fact that something is existing in a blob or in Fabric does not mean it is publicly available. So you have your VNet gateway, just like your data gateway, also to actually protect and ensure compliance within your Fabric environment. So monitoring security and compliance, there you have your activity log, you have your audit log available. Then you can make use of alert and notification, integration with monitoring tools, and also compliance support. So some of these reports we are going to see in the admin workspace as we proceed. So let's go back into our Fabric environment now and go through some of the things that we have when it comes to admin. So if you come to your you cannot hear me now, please by show of hand or reaction on Teams just to confirm. Just continue. Make environments. When you click on workspaces, let me just start zoom in a bit so that we are all able to see. Yeah. So when you come to your workspaces, then you have on the very top you have admin monitoring. But because I've enabled this the first time, that's why you're able to see it here. But if you have never done this, what you need to do is actually to come into your settings here, where you are going to have your Microsoft Purview preview. That is going to give you some governance to do some monitoring. And I think they changed the position now. So you can just click on this and then you are able to see the governance workspace for Microsoft Purview. And when you integrate Purview also a bit more, you are able to see a lot more information. So yes, so this is our governance tab. You are able to see the overview. Now, if you have a good practice in the organization, you should have sensitivity label and unlabeled. Like that you go down is a sort of label that allows you to see um, how sensitive the data report. I think you have about 3 reports in your admin workspace. So let me just click that right now. Okay, let me just all right. So let me now go to my workspace and click on admin monitoring. So on admin monitoring, you are able to see a number of inbuilt reports that gives you insight to monitor everything that you have in your environment. There are 3 of them. You have for content sharing, you have for feature usage and adoption, you have for Purview Hub as well. So let's open each of them. Now these reports are actually inbuilt with your fabric environment. Once you have a fabric environment, then you can find all of these reports. You cannot edit, you cannot adjust. They are just there to help you monitor certain things in your environment. So here you have your overview tab. For some reason, I tried to check this earlier, it's not showing. Maybe someone else can check their own environment. And I check as many pages as possible as well to even see what is going on right here. So let's go to the feature usage and adoption report. Yeah. A typical monitoring dashboard. So you have about 3 pages: overview, analysis, inventory, and a particular date range. I believe you all know how you can actually pick a capacity here. So I have a fabric tracker capacity in this environment which I can pick, and of course I'm then able to see all the workspaces that are associated with that capacity. I believe there are a number of them. Then so I can pick on any workspace that I want, and then the operation type is that a data set was created or get admin user or any operation. Then the user type, is he a user principal or a service principal? So or the user that is doing it. So there are a number of users that you find in your environment. So whatever the person is doing, you are able to monitor what that person is doing in real time. So for this particular capacity and for this date to workspaces, so activities, there's a trend of total activity, and then also the a number of is rolling now. So you can explore all of these reports later to actually see how they work. So you can see the consumption as well. See this to see. So these are the things that you have. I think what we are here to check is the Purview Hub. So let's go through the Purview Hub. So which is very similar to, so there are two ways to get to the Purview Hub. Either you are using from the admin monitoring or you go through the admin portal and you're able to get your Purview Hub. So either way, you land in the same page. So let's see, you have your sensitivity label, data loss prevention, then endorsement. Now that we've checked some of the native things that you have in your environment, let's try and open some notebook and open up some pipeline and see how to actually monitor them. So let me just go back to monitor tab in our environment. So under monitor tab, you can see a number of things. So for example, I can check. I want to monitor things based on their item type. So maybe I want to monitor, let's say, so now this filter combination is not giving me anything in recent time because this is not an act book that I have. Okay, this was a notebook that we used for our challenge sometime back. Let me just go into my workspace. And then from this workspace now, I think we have Fabric Community. So challenge 1, we did execute some number of notebook in that challenge. So let's check. So if you hover on any of these notebook, then you're able to click on the ellipsis, and then You can see the run details, recent run. Then you get to see all the recent executions. So here you can see the name of the application, you can see the submitter, and then the person that submits. So there are no recent run for this particular. So, but there is nothing bad if we let's just trigger a single run now. So I'm going to run this notebook so just so we can have a run in our environment. So while that is happening, let me just open another tab. Then I will go to any of my Fabric workspaces and show some of the settings that I talked about with this those things. So let's check um, as well. So workspace, then you scroll down. Then you have all these settings. I'm sure some people have not gone beyond creating workspace general or licensing. So let's check the Spark on under data engineering, for example. So Spark settings. Now I talked about concurrency. If you have pool is like your environment and your compute. When you turn on, you can adjust the pool that the person is using. So you have a number of nodes in that your pool, or you can create a new pool, and then with your pool you have node family, you have small, large, and medium, and of course you can increase the number of your auto scaling, so that when you are auto scaling, it's just going to be distributed between 1 and 10. Then dynamically allocating allocating executors to, you can also have that enabled. So these are some of settings that you can actually have. So if I create this new pool now, pool you are using also is your environment. So for those that are coming, you can have certain libraries, and if you have those some libraries, you can do some certain work. So you can actually customize what you have in your Spark 3.4 is a lower version. So these are the two runtime for it to have now. So session timeout. So for example, if you run notebook, I think I'm yet to run this. So let me just run this, then I will come back. So now, as I'm running this notebook, the starting up a Spark session, you can see that I have a stop sign here, stopped immediately. So, however, you can actually set up how your Spark is going to behave with when it becomes idle. So if I don't do anything on this notebook for the next 20 minutes, they can control from here. So I can set the Spark session timers to be for 20 minutes. Now, if you want to improve cost, what is we up and on the workload that you have in your environment. Then we have your high concurrency as well. So the way I have this Spark application up and running, so if I come back to my workspace, if I come back to my workspace now, and then I think this is the wrong workspace. yeah, if I come back to my workspace and then I'm executing, let's say, another notebook, then this notebook that I'm about to execute and the one that is currently running, they are going to share this joint Spark session. That is what we imply by high concurrency. Currently, it is enabled by default in every workspace, but you can also enable that for your pipeline. So you can go to the documentation. Now, you see question in your exam that will ask you that, okay, you have a high concurrency enabled in your environment and then you are running two separate notebook. Are they going to use the same Spark session or not? So this is what is going to happen, and this is where you control that. So for notebooks, you have your high concurrency enabled. Then for pipeline too, you can have that enabled as well. But as a way of heads up, when you enable running high concurrency with your pipeline, you also need to do some little configuration in that pipeline that you use to specify that the pipeline should include a shared Spark session even in your pipeline, and then you have automatic login. So for example, for those that are going to be doing some machine learning work or building models, now the metrics, the parameter are automatically logged in your Fabric workspace. If you turn this off, then that automatic login is not going to happen again. So that is what we have for your Spark setting. Also for your data warehousing as well, you have some setting in there, and then one link as well. Then these are under monitoring that you can use. This monitoring sort of creates um, an event house that logs all the activity that you have in your environment. So when you do this now, it's going to create an event house in your environment that helps you monitor and log activity that you have going on in this particular workspace. So, but for the sake of time and configuring this database, you can actually explore this. It's actually a new feature because as at when I was writing my exam, this monitoring with event house was not available, but now it is added. So that's one thing also. Even if you have read your entire learning part before, it is important that we go back and see the new feature. You see, as this is loading up, you now have an event stream item being created for me, which is going to capture the log. Whatever activity that is happening in this workspace is going to be captured in real time, and then it's going to be logged in the um, in the event house, in the custom database of that event house. So these are some of the monitoring tools that you have. There are also custom tools that are available on GitHub as open source project that people are working on. And another very interesting monitoring that you have with your Fabric is the Fabric capacity metric. Just show us briefly. So that one you can use it to monitor your capacity utilization, how expensive okay. I think I'm struggling to taking a while to quickly downloading. Let me just show us what is going to happen. So when you install the metric app, what you have is that for you have this report and you also have this thematic model. So let me open this report quickly. Question either on team monitoring that shows you the number of capacity, the average utilization, the throttling capacity. So that throttling is going to give you insight onto future. So it as often, but you do not expect to see this in real time. And then you're able to see the health of your capacity. So you see that if you have multiple regions, you can filter to the region that you have. Now, because my region is in South Africa, not so it's going to pick the default region, and then all the capacities that I have just a trial capacity, which is an F64 capacity, and then uh, the SKU either is a F2, F4, F16, F32, and all those, so you can see them. Then also the compute. This is where you now get to see in your utilization, the peak utilization, and everything. So these are some tools that are available for monitoring. So if I select my capacity now, then store this workspace, which I can provide as we proceed in this session. So you are able to see the CU compute, the duration. So for example, on this particular day, that was on Monday, I can see that this workspace with this item name, which is a notebook, actually is consuming about 43,000 capacity units. That is going to be calculated, and then the duration as well. Then you can see the medallion architecture workspace to lakehouses and the things that actually consuming my compute. So if I want to filter down to just this particular day alone, then is a ribbon chart that shows the item, either activator, a data set, event stream, and all of those, and also the duration. Then you can also um, do a drill through on this monitoring solution. For example, let me try and zoom in here, and then we are able to see some data points that one can monitor. Okay, I'll do a focus mode because of low activity in this tenant. That's why this is not exactly feasible. So we can see that we have a sort of column chart down here, and then the hour or period where that is happening. You can see that. So let me thin this out. Okay, so this is one data point. So you can see you have the time points, the background, the percentage, the auto scaling, the data C usage, and all of that. So if I right click on it now, I can drill through to see the time point detail or time point summary. So that takes me to a detailed page. Then for that particular hour, I can see the items that are responsible for the consumption. So at that particular time and hour, this workspace is taking a bulk of the consumption, the background, the item in those workspaces that are causing the consumption. So this gives you like a very robust information to monitor what is going on in your environment. So I can use this to go back into the main report page. So is your storage page. You can also check your storage, either your all the lake houses in your estate, the percentage billable, gig 37, 1.38 rather. So that means out of the current storage is just 1.13 minus 1.38, and the costing is actually publicly available. And then you can see some of the workspaces that are consuming the most available storage. So you can do some optimization in there now that you can identify the workspaces that are responsible for your billable storage. Then you have your auto scale, compute for Spark. I already showed us some settings around Spark as well. So this will also guide you on how to do some of your Spark settings as well. So it's actually a very exhaustive tool that you can use, and of course you can set up alerts on some of these items. So if I go to, let's say, my compute now, for example, I can on decision card, which I think is on my Earth preview page. So if I come in here, I can say that when the utilization is maybe 70, I should be notified. So for example, let's say this is 70. Then I can click on alerts, and when I click this alert, it creates a data activator item that I can use to set notification to either my Teams or to Outlook or to even a group chat, and then it takes an action based on what I have. So these are some of the tools that are publicly available. There are some other ones that are open source, but that is available within your environment is something that we can use to actually monitor and optimize Fabric. Now, before we wrap it up for today, let's just quickly show how to monitor notebooks. So here I did execute a recent run. So let's see, I did a recent run now. So let's go to our monitor tab and see if the execution that I triggered just now, we are going to find it here. So you can see now that this is still running. So this way now, if you have a lot of notebook in your environment, you are able to see the status. So this one is still running. So if I want to cancel it here, for example, let me just, the start time is about 1944. So let's add more column in here. Let's see the duration, which is also here. Okay, I think duration is already there. So let me just scroll across. So far, this is still running because we can't get duration because it's still running. So, but this is start time. That's more than 7 minutes ago, which I do not expect. So now you may want to go into this notebook and see what is going on. Is the notebook done running? Is it not done running? So this is the notebook itself. Now the notebook itself is done running, but the Spark application is not. And remember the configuration for Spark, you can see that in the workspace because it only get terminated after 20 minutes. So maybe if you have an environment that your most notebook gets executed in 15 minutes, then your Spark termination duration when should not be more than 15 minutes. So if most of my notebook is going to get executed in 15 minutes, so that means I don't want to leave my notebook idle for more than 15 minutes. So I can go back to my workspace setting and adjust that Spark setting that it should just take should stop the application once it's idle for maybe 10 minutes or so, since the notebook is going to get executed in less than 20 minutes. So that way you're able to save cost because as you have this application, Spark application up and running, it is consuming cost. So let's go back to the monitor tab so you can see how you can use this to monitor. So imagine you have like 100 notebook in your environment. You don't want to start going through workspace one after the other. You're able to see everything in your environment just in a singular view. So from here now, I know that that notebook is done. I can just cancel and stop that Spark session. But if I had optimized my workspace correctly, then this Spark application should have stopped since the notebook is done running itself. So you can get more information on it, and you can open the notebook, you can view run, so you can see the historical run of that notebook as well if you want. So these are some of the ways you can actually monitor things in your Fabric environment. So let's just go to the workspace itself to get into the monitoring. So this is the notebook, and then when you open the notebook, you can come to your run tab, and then on your run tab you can click on view recent runs, where you then see that run that we just completed. So that is taking a while. Let me just refresh. So you can see now that this is the application name. It was submitted at this time. The person that submitted this, the status. Now it took 15 minutes. It's a manual run, and then the status is now stopped because I was the one that manually stopped this application. So you want to see, you can click on the run itself, and then you will see the way the notebook actually executed, and it was distributed job by job across. So you can just check your item snapshots. Then in your item snapshots, you're able to see how each cell in the notebook is executed. Okay, I think this is not coming up now. For some reason, I don't know why it's not coming up, but typically you're able to see what is happening with each cell in your job execution right here. Any question before we call it a day, either on Teams or on YouTube? You have any question, you can drop it to stop. Okay, I can't find any question. That means we are good. We are all prepared for our exam. So in the absence of any question, I think we can call it a day, and then tomorrow we share more exam tips. So we've covered the three major areas, and if you have any question, please feel free to drop your question even in the chats. Help you happen or somebody is trying to type some question in the chat. At least if you have that one question, we can answer that before we call it a day today, and then we hope to see you tomorrow. All right, thank you to Abdurrahman. So I think in the absence of any question, we come again tomorrow and have the final day of our fabric study group. So see you guys tomorrow. Bye, and have a wonderful evening, night rest, or wherever you are joining from.